Okay, so we are now in step one of our last assignment for Philosophy 200306, that's ethics, and you're following this video to learn more about the assignment. I'm going to provide an overview with really important warnings, tips, etc. Keep in mind that there are plenty of videos. All of them are required for week 14, and keep in mind that if you want to or think you might need help from me, you do have to submit along with your request for help very detailed, very thorough, very precise, accurate, clear notes for each video. And keep in mind that if I don't think that your notes meet minimum standards with respect to thoroughness, clarity, precision, and accuracy, I will let you know by email that you need to take more notes and work on your notes before I can help you. Keep in mind what I say in the announcements about the deadline to ask me for help, which means you want to make sure you go through all the videos and means that you want to send me an email in due time to get feedback from me. Okay, so that said, the objective that we have for week 14 is that you will assess your willingness and ability to manifest 3 character traits of good thinkers and learners in the context of this very course, Philosophy 2306 Ethics. Keep in mind that you must work through all of the steps in the order given to do well on this interactive assessment. I have very specific, exact requirements, some of which are covered only in the videos. And just, as a warning, when I was grading the essays on Aristotle, it was really obvious who had listened to in detail all of the videos that went with each paragraph, especially the ones where you were supposed to apply concepts from Aristotle. It was really obvious who really took their time to work through those videos and actually try to apply various theoretical concepts as directed in the video. So the same will be true for, of course, this assignment. Notice that I say that this is going to be an interactive assignment, and I'm going to explain what that is, what I mean by that in just a moment. So here I have an outline to use to ensure you work through everything as expected. So this is going to replace the outline that you see in the course schedule in the syllabus. So what I would do is you might copy the steps, take a picture, copy and paste this into Word and print it out. But you literally want to go through this, crossing out each step as you work through them. Because I am doing this and I do expect you to be following all of this video and I present this to you, there's really no reason to say, well, I didn't know this, I didn't know about that and whatnot. So make sure that you are doing as expected, because my concern is that some students, if they're not really taking the videos and the steps, seriously or engaged enough, that a student might stop at step 4 and not go on with step 5 and 6 because you submit something for step 4. And so I can see a student who's not following everything carefully or following everything, not doing step 5 and 6 because they think they only had to submit one thing for week 14. Now, this might be different from what you see in the original course schedule, and that is because this is a new assignment I've developed. I have a version of it that I've used in years past, but now I'm doing it a little bit differently. And so I've just realized that I need to flesh out steps like this for you to do your self-assessment. So again, I'm letting you know through this video that this is the outline to use, not the one in the syllabus. Okay, so step 1, this is step 1. So when we finish going through the written instructions and you finish listening to this video, then you are complete with step 1. You can cross it out. So step 2, you are to review warnings and lessons on academic honesty and plagiarism. So this is stuff that you have been learning about since week 1, the orientation, and that I'm constantly reminding you of. But I'm making sure that I'm covering my tracks by presenting to you the information again. So make sure that you read everything here very carefully, reminders about how you can get zeros, whether you intentionally or intentionally plagiarize. Again, I don't make a distinction between intentional and unintentional. Make sure that you review this video here, but make sure you review everything in writing when it comes to step 2. So read every single thing in writing. And then when it comes to this part where I have play it safe and review the following, I do expect you to watch this video in its totality. You really don't want to unintentionally commit plagiarism, much less intentionally. And this will help you make sure that you don't do commit any kind of plagiarism or academic dishonesty in any way or any form. This is always just a good review. These other ones, they're just there in case you really want more. This is for those of you who just want the extra assurance to make sure that you remember, what you need to do or not do. But I'm not stressing these as much, but I do stress those two. So you'll do that on your own. I don't have videos for step 2 in terms of me creating videos, though you should watch the video that I link you to in part of step 2. So step 3, you will access and learn about the only approved source and how to cite it. So that one's pretty self-explanatory as well, so I don't have a video for it, but I'll go ahead and do a little bit of an overview. This is the teacher screen, so it looks a little bit different. Okay, so give me a second. So always, I put stuff in red font, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't read stuff that's in black font or blue font. I really try to be concise. So don't think that because something's not in red or blue font, you shouldn't read it. If it's written, you need to read it. So make sure you read about this. You're going to have a download. You have to download this PowerPoint. You have to use it. You have to cite from it. Make sure you read about my expectations in terms of how you cite from the PowerPoint, what is required in each paragraph, what I expect to see in it in terms of citations. And here I went ahead and told you how to do your internal citations within each paragraph. And I'll say more about that in a minute. And so actually, I'll say more about this. I want you to read through this step 3 on your own. And then when you go to step 4, I will fill in some details about this part right here. Okay, so let's go to step 4. So assess your intellectual courage in the context of this course. Step 4A. So now we're getting to the really interactive part. So basically, steps 3, 4, and 5 have you doing some cycles of learning, of some final lecture points I want to make. Let me get back up there. Getting the written instructions on how to use the concept about which I made some final lecture points, and then submitting a response. And so basically, you're going to do that 3 times. So you can see step 4A, get some final lecture points for the concept of intellectual courage. You'll also do that for intellectual empathy and then intellectual perseverance. But those will be done in steps 5. So you can see this one is assess your intellectual empathy in the context of this course. And then step 6 is assess your intellectual perseverance in the context of this course. So remember that I lectured on extensively these concepts during week 13. So if you came to class, you had a good refresher and now you've got the source material. If you paid attention during Zoom, you've got some, that's good. If you haven't, if you didn't participate at all, either during Zoom, online, or in class, or follow along in Zoom, I should say, then this is going to be like your refresher and your application. That said, I'm not going to go through each of the PowerPoints the PowerPoint for step 3 that you access, I'm not going to go through each slide and lecture on it all over again since I did that during week 13 during your Zoom session. But I am going to provide via step 4A some final lecture points that I did not focus on during week 13. In other words, I'm going to focus on misconceptions that students sometimes have about an intellectual virtue, whether it's intellectual courage for step 4, intellectual empathy for step 5, or intellectual perseverance for step 6. So you can see that for each of the steps, for each of the assessments, you are going to get some final lecture points. So final lecture points about intellectual courage, final lecture points about intellectual empathy, final lecture points about intellectual perseverance. I don't want you to make mistakes or get confused about the virtues in the way that sometimes students do. Technically, if you're using the definitions as given and the bullet points as given on each slide for each concept in the PowerPoint, you shouldn't apply them incorrectly. But sometimes students still do. So, just keep that in mind. But yeah, so each step will have a video that is about 5 minutes long, and it will provide warnings and tips on what the concept is not. During week 13, I primarily focused on what the concept entails, or a concept of intellectual virtue entails. during week 14, I'm going to make sure that you understand what the definition and the explanation for each intellectual concept is not saying. And it's really important for you to follow that so that you don't make the mistake in your understanding of what a concept is or is not, its definition and explanation is or is not saying. Because if you don't understand the concept correctly, then you might give me an incorrect example and end up with maybe no points for a paragraph. Okay, so step 4, 5, and 6 also have a B step. So get the written and video-based lessons and instructions on how to apply the concept in your paragraph long response. So as you can see then, this means that this assignment, if you're doing the 60-point version, you're trying to earn 60 points, you're going to have a paragraph for step 4, a paragraph for step 5, and a paragraph for step 6. One thing that I want to iterate is that this is not an essay. I do not want any introductory paragraphs. I don't want any background information. I only want the information and explanation and focus in each paragraph that I ask for within each of these steps. So no closing, nothing. Another thing that I'm not going to want is fluffy language about great philosophers and the interesting concepts. None of that stuff. This is very technical. This is a very technical assessment using definitions and explanations from the PowerPoint or bullet points from the PowerPoint. Okay, so again, make sure that you follow all in any videos. So each steps 4, 5, and 6, they each focus on an intellectual virtue, a specific intellectual virtue concept. Each one has final lecture points to help you make sure you don't make mistakes or have misunderstanding. Each one has written and video-based lessons and instructions on how to apply the concept in your paragraph long response. Each one also has an optional step. So this gets back to the points. If you're only going for 60 points, then you can skip the optional step because each paragraph is worth 20 points. So there'd be 3 paragraphs, each is self-contained, and those would add up to, of course, 20 plus 20 plus 20 is 60. If you're choosing, I'm so sorry. If you're choosing to try to earn an additional 100 points, and some of you really, really need to, then you will have to do the optional step, especially if you've had an F or a D, or you have, like definitely if you have 400 points or less, and I would sincerely encourage you to do this. In fact, if you have 600 points or less, you should do the longer version of this assignment, just to make sure. But that said, if you don't want to do the optional, I mean, technically it's your choice. You don't have to do this assignment at all, but you won't get any, you'll not get the points that go with it. But I'm just letting you know that that's an optional step, but each optional component is what I should say. These are really components. Whatever you see as optional in steps 4, 5, and 6, each of those are worth up to 33 points. So that can make a difference. So if you do the optional component for steps 4 and then do the optional component for step 5 and the optional component for step 6, you can earn in total, along with the required response plus the optional one, you could get 53 points for each response. Okay, so, but basically this is the way you're going to wrap up the semester. You're going to get a final lecture point about a virtue. You're going to get the written and video-based instructions for your paragraph long response. You're going to choose the optional step if you want the points. If not, you'll skip it, and then you'll submit the response. The pro about this is that you will have fresh in your mind the final lecture points and the coaching and lesson that goes with how to apply the concept. And then you just submit it. So when I say interactive, it's because you get final lecture points, you get video-based coaching, and then you submit your response. Then you start over. You get final lecture points, video-based coaching on how to apply, and then you submit your response. So to me, that's kind of interactive because you listen to lecture, you get some coaching, and then you respond. So you're basically going to do that 3 times. I think I'm trying to see if there's anything else I wanted to say about this. No, just make sure that you're using this outline. When you're done with step 4, cross out step 4. When you're done with step 5, cross out step 5. Oh, I do know one thing I wanted to say. The videos in step 4 will probably be the longest. I actually do have some examples of what to do and what not to do, generally speaking. And those are provided in step 4 only, using a virtue I'm not having you focus on, but nevertheless, it's very insightful and helpful. So step 4 will take you the longest to work through in terms of initially seeing how, this interactive self-assessment works, getting a feel for what is expected, because basically you're doing the same thing in each of these steps. It's just a different concept, or but of course, all each of the concepts are all part of intellectual virtue, so they're all part of the same overall concept. But just keep in mind what I just said, that this one will take you the longest. The videos in steps 5 and 6 will not be as long, or there won't be as many. So keep that in mind. There will be more video and more time spent, of course, if you choose the optional steps in each folder. Okay, so again, remember that if you plan to or think you might ask for help, I do require very detailed notes, accurate notes based on this video. And then also see the announcements to see what I say about when you have to ask for help and how you ask for help and all that other good stuff. It's an announcement that I posted Monday, 5/10 in the course Blackboard. Okay, guys.